in case you're like, why is he texting during this conversation? So my name is Dan. My brand name is TheAspieWorld, which is really funny. A lot of people kind of give me stick for that, but I actually don't care because I'm who I am and whatever. And so basically, I'm a video influencer. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome in 2013, along with ADHD and a bunch of other cool, awesome stuff. And then it kind of progressed, and I had a re-diagnosis of ASD because obviously the nomenclature changed. But I started a YouTube channel in way ages ago, and it just grew by accident. And now I do talks all over the world, and I write books, and I have my second book coming out, and I made friends with like Temple Grandin and things like that. So I've done a lot of different things and been all over the world doing this kind of stuff and advocating for autism. And so one of the things I like to do is talk about a lot of the most interesting, intricate parts that I find really interesting in my job when I'm coaching people, or if I'm creating courses, or I'm doing like fun things like seminars like this, to a way to educate and teach people the actual behind the scenes part of what you may be seeing and experiencing through an autistic person's behavior. Well, that's a bad word to use, but something similar. Anyway, okay, so I'm going through, it's a bit ambiguous, this title. I don't think it may not be the three most, because you may have different ones. It's obviously subjective, but this is what I think is quite interesting. So I've put these down because I thought 3 is enough. We only have half an hour, and I talk a lot, but I also have ADHD, so I talk very fast. So if at any point you're like, Dan, what on earth are you saying? Just put your hand up and be like, can you repeat it? And I'll be like, yeah, okay, of course I can. So that's me. I am from Wales. I'm Welsh, even though my accent is a bit weird. I learned to speak watching television and cartoons and things, which is really interesting. So my accent is a little bit Americanized, so I do apologize. But I'm not American. A lot of people think I am, but I'm not. So let's get into it. Oh, by the way, guys, if you want to follow me on any social media platform, you can do. The handle is @TheAspieWorld, and that's every single one. We upload 4 videos a day on every single one of those platforms. So we do a lot of content, blogs and podcast, everything you could possibly think of. Yeah. So let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, emotional regulation or emotional deregulation, is really interesting. A lot of people see people on the autism spectrum having difficulties with emotions because they feel like, or they believe that the autistic individual is not able to perceive emotion. You know, this person, don't worry, they're emotionally deregulated, they can't understand emotions, which is kind of untrue. It's not so much that they can't understand emotions, it's just the way they process emotions. So I'm going to define the term emotion in a minute, but before I get there, I want to explain a little bit about how autistic individuals actually process emotion. So everything for an autistic person is felt on an increasingly deeper level, because autism has also hyper sensitivity from sensory processing disorder. When you have a condition that's combined with something like sensory processing disorder, everything in your life becomes hypersensitive. So it could be the fact that when you sneeze, it like rocks your brain until you feel like you're drilling into the floor, or if you brush past somebody in the supermarket as if you've been hit by a train. Everything is hypersensitive. So when you have an emotion, it's not that the person can't feel the emotion. The problem is the person on the spectrum is feeling the emotion in their soul, because that is what it feels like when you have an emotional experience or something that's happening. Could be happy, could be sad, dependent. And of course, this kind of then happens where they'll be stimming because they're trying to regulate their emotion in a way where they're trying to understand it. So that's kind of the big misconception with emotional regulation. But there's more to say on this, because obviously it's my first topic I want to talk about, is the delay in reacting to emotions. A lot of autistic individuals will have, they'll have maybe a discussion, a heated discussion or a happy discussion, but there'll be a delay in their response to the person. And it could be emotional. They'll be like, so I get this all the time, my partner, she's like, oh, why do you answer me when I'm talking about something very serious, couples. And I go, oh, well, I'm just trying, and I just kind of freak out. I know what I'm saying. I'm just like, oh, but she's like, oh, but what actually is happening is because there is such an amount of feeling happening. What actually happens is an autistic person will feel emotion through physical, like pain. So it's a negative emotion. It'll be physically hurting. So it's hard to actually talk when you're in pain. Imagine somebody's pushing your head to the floor. You're like, I'm like, come on, answer me. What are you talking about? Come on. And you're like, well, give me a second. Hold on a minute. You know what I mean? It's difficult, but it's difficult. So when someone's talking to you and having an emotional conversation, they're able to actually put their emotions into thought and say, well, actually, you're an idiot, Dan. And I'm like, okay. But when I'm trying to talk back, I'm like, because it hurts. It's difficult to explain that. I don't know any other way to explain it, but it's like having a physical pain. So that's another misconception, is that people on the autism spectrum are being arrogant, or they're not being kind of passive in emotional kind of regulation. They're actually feeling it deeply on a pain, on a tactile kind of sense. And the last thing, and this is really interesting, but I'm going to take some water because it's so hot in here, I think I like melt. I don't know if you've ever seen that SpongeBob movie where him and Patrick are on the side of the table and they're like dried up. Like, that's me right now. I'm sorry. It's true. I love SpongeBob. So emotion, this is really interesting. I do a lot of coaching with people, and this is one of the big things. Obviously, anxiety is a big one, but emotional regulation is a big one. People say to me, like, I can't handle my emotions. I'm like, okay. And autistic individuals, I do one-on-one kind of coaching through Zoom and whatever. And one of the things they say is, like, I want to be able to handle my emotions. I said, okay, well, let's just break it down. So the word emotion actually is energy in motion. And when you think about energy in motion, what does that actually mean? Well, when you feel something that you want to express, it's an energy. It's either an anger or it's a happy energy. But when you put it into motion, how it moves fluidly from you is where the emotion actually comes into it, or what people see as a front-facing emotion. So when you feel something, you then decide, how am I going to put this into motion? And that's where the complication lies, because a lot of people don't define terms. They just hear a word and that's what it is. Like Joey from Friends, like, emotion, that's what it is, But it's not. It's energy in motion. And when you think about it like that, you say, okay, I feel sad. How am I going to explain this? Or maybe I'll cry. Maybe I'll just tell someone, hey, I feel sad. And that is the difference between just hearing the word emotion and understanding energy in motion. And it's really interesting because when you define that, when you actually understand that, you take a step back as an autistic individual and you say, okay, I feel this energy. Okay, I'm going to put it into this motion. And that, honestly, has been life-changing for many of the people I work with on a day-to-day basis because they've never really understood it. And that's where it comes from. A lot of autistic individuals like to know things, like to understand things, not just feel them on a deeper level, but understand them on a deeper level and really break those things down. Really interesting, really fun as well. Okay, cool. We're on to number 2. Obviously, the gentleman that kind of hooked me up with the slide, he was like, you only got one slide? I said, yeah, I've only got one slide. He said, well, people got loads of slides. I said, look, I have the same conversation whenever I do interviews, right? Oh, well, now I have no slides. Good joke. But I have the same conversation when I do. That was perfect timing as well. People say to me, like, I'm going to send you I do a lot of interviews on TV and magazines and stuff. And they say, I'm going to send you the interview questions ahead of time. I said, don't do that. I said, what? I said, well, if I don't know what I'm talking about, why are you interviewing me? So the same thing with slides. If I don't know what I'm talking about, why would I need slides to talk? I know what I'm talking about, and this is where it's going on. So in case you're wondering why I'm not flicking through slides, it's because I already know what I'm going to say. I'm just, don't need the slides. Anyway, enough of that. This is number 2. So number 2, misunderstood autism trait. Zoning out. Interesting, isn't it? I love this one. A lot of people say zoning out in their own world. I love that. Zoning out. Zoning out means to be partial from reality, being distracted enough so that you're detached from reality, which actually isn't what's happened. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions. So zoning out is actually zoning in. So like my girlfriend, we have this all the time. I'll be sitting down, we're watching television or we'll do something, and I'm like, start staring off the space, and she's talking to me, and she'll be talking for about an hour. She's like, Dan, I'm like, what? And she's like, you heard anything I said? I said, no. She's like, well, what are you doing? Like, zoning out, as you would say, zoning out. I said, no, I'm not zoning out, I'm zoning in. I'm deeply thinking about something. I'm zoning into reality. I'm feeling the vibration of whatever is going on at that moment in time, which is really interesting because the deep fixation with things, like I walk past something in the street and I'll be like, oh, okay, whoa, a piece of broken computer part, and I'll just look at it. I'm just thinking, oh my God, I could take this home. And she's like, we don't need any more rubbish in the house. But I'm like, I could use this for something. And I'm sitting there and I'll look at it for about an hour. She's like, what is going on? Like, come on. I'm like, no, because I'm thinking about, what can I do with this thing? Where can it go? Where did it come from? Who owned this? How did it make? How much money did this thing make when it was alive? Now it means nothing because it's on the floor. It's broken. What am I going to do with it? Can I make money from it? Can I put this on eBay? I don't know. Maybe I could try. Let's take it home. And then my girlfriend's like, so it's not zoning out. What actually happens is autistic people zone into something and they get hyperfixated on it because what happens again is a thirst for deeply learning the intricate movement of something or how it is connected to the reality you're experiencing. And a lot of people miss this. We have this A to B, don't they? They get in their car, they drive to work, and then they get to work and they hate their life. And then the bit in between, I'm only joking, a lot of people love their work. But the bit in between, they forget because they just go from A to B. And it's, but autistic individuals will notice every single thing on the way past. There's a tree, there's a squirrel, there's an apple over there. Wonder where the apple came from. Is the squirrel going to eat apple? I'll eat apple. Damn, it's gone. You know what I mean? So it's not zoning out, it's zoning in, but it will seem like zoning out because they're not engaging in the conversation to say, like, guess what? I just seen a squirrel trying to eat an apple. Because if I try to explain everything I see, hear, and feel, we'd be here all day. And I'll be like, yes, because it goes so fast. My brain works so fast. There's no way I'm going to be able to tell anybody everything I'm thinking of. Hence why I've got these little bit of notes in here so I can remember to keep on track and not talk and waffle. So that's it, yeah. It's basically zoning in. And so what I would say about this is that it's not so much worrying if someone's zoning out. It's allowing them time to process and then move forward. So what I would say about this is like when I'm hanging out with my girlfriend and she's talking to me and I'm like zoning in something, I'm like, oh my God, wonder how much money Home Alone 2 made, you know? And then she's like, what? But it's not her trying to say, oh, come on, quickly, get into the conversation I'm talking about. It's her then being able to say, okay, I'll let you have your moment of zoning in, all right? And then we'll progress and we'll move forward. Because without that, what you'll have is a lack of transition from the thing that we're thinking about to the thing that I then have to engage with. And then you'll have all kinds of complications. We'll go back to emotions again and we're sleeping on the sofa and stuff. So, that was funny. So that is zoning out, or would I say zoning in? Also, guys, just so you know, I have a free PDF book. You can download at autismhacks.net. You download that if you want. That's why I put the website there. But it's free. You just put your email address in and it's sent it to you. Cool. Right. So the last thing I'm going to talk about. Hopefully I'm on time. What am I doing? Am I good with time? Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is obsessive interest. Really good one actually, and I've got a really good example for this. A lot of people think. So I mean, if I just said like hands up, who's got an obsessive interest in the autism spectrum? Everybody put their hands up, right? I'm obsessed with all kinds of stuff. I did a degree in chemistry because I was bored. Like seriously. But the cool thing about it is that I did my dissertation all about Minecraft, and I did my big project on Minecraft. And I built these teaching tools in Minecraft. It was pretty cool, and it was kind of like I got obsessed with it. You know, like what kind of stuff can I make in Minecraft? Chemical kind of compositions and models. You know, it was great. But it doesn't just stop there. A lot of people will see autistic individuals be obsessed with something, right? And then they'll buy everything to do with it. You'll have, you know, every single action figure possible of something. I did it recently. I had 4 deliveries to the house, and my girlfriend's like, what you bought now? I was like, nothing. That's just 3 sets of Blink-182 action figures, you know? What can I say? And I was like, she was like, why do you need 3 sets? I said, because this one's a different variant. This one's got a blue hat. And so so she was like, okay, so you're just a hoarder then, and you collect rubbish. And I was like, no, I'm not. But this is what it seems like. It seems like autistic individuals are hoarders and they like to collect rubbish. And people will kind of make up random psychology because they feel, you know, these people who are not autistic, who are professionals. And I'm not dogging on professionals, they're great. I work with a lot of autistic professionals, or autism professionals who are not autistic. But they'll say things like, these things make them feel happy. He collects things to feel comfortable. And it's like, what? Tell me what? Like I like the colors, you know, like, and so they'll make up all these like weird psychology things about it, and they don't really understand what's going on. So it's not like the hardest. Tell you what happens. My girlfriend, and this is an example. It's feeling the vibration of the thing that you exist within very deeply, and this happens. It's like I feel it in my soul when I come across something, especially certain like vinyl action figures. They have a certain smell, right? They smell great. They have a certain packaging. The colors in the packaging are fantastic. The smoothness of the cardboard on the outside is mesmerizing. Just the touch, the plastic, so smooth, and how this thing is made is so complex. I'm thinking about the journey the thing took from being a mold in China. How did they put these polymers together to make this plastic? The whole thing is fascinates the heck out of me. That's why I collect those things, because every single one of those is different. You know, because yes, you might see 100 action figures on the shelf, but each one of those is individual. There'll be a small defect in every single one of those. That's the difference. We're not hoarding, we're understanding, we're learning, we're expanding our minds, and that is the difference between hoarding and actually being autistic and having a special interest, right? But it goes deeper than that. The difference is, when autistic people want to learn things, we don't learn things the same as other people. A lot of people say like they'll have learning types, right? People with learning types and all this rubbish. And learning types are varied between everyone. That's why you can never get a school with like 100 kids in it and then think everyone's going to learn the same, because bonkers, isn't it? Well, with autistic individuals, when you are learning about a specific topic of interest, because something just, you know, sparks interest, okay, fine. But what's interesting about it is that you will need tactile feedback to understand something on a greater level, right? And what I mean by this is when I'm learning about stuff, there's 2 reasons why people fail in education and learning. First one is that they don't understand a word or a phrase when reading a research document, and they'll just like, well, flag what I got. I don't know what it means, but I'll just carry on reading. That doesn't work. You don't define the thing that was supposed to be integral in that article, you will fail. The second thing, that's important, the second thing is lack of mass. So if you're studying engineering, right? And you were like, we're going to talk about how to put an engine together for a motorcycle. Great. And they put up a slideshow. Great. Well, where's the engine? You know what I mean? So when you have lack of mass, you have a disconnection between learning and understanding and actually digesting information. So when you're an autistic individual and you want to really get into that topic of interest, it's not hoarding, it's not collecting rubbish and garbage. What you're doing is you're presenting mass to understand and have tactile feedback. Pick the thing up that you're obsessing over and feel it, touch it, understand it. And how I do this is really interesting, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, is I love learning, but I'm dyslexic. I have a best-selling book out in 3 languages, I'm dyslexic, and I have a second book out in September, again, super dyslexic. But I do these things because I love to learn and I love to write, but I don't write, typically I dictate from my phone, that's how I do it. But the interesting thing about it is that I love to then digest books. But you think, how does a dyslexic digest books? I digest hundreds and hundreds of books a year. And how I do this is very interesting. So if I sit down and try to read a book, it's never going to go in. You know that thing where you read the same line 16 times and you're like, none of this has gone in. Like, why do I even have this book? Put it in the bin. So what I do is I download audiobooks and I put them on my phone. And then I go, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix understanding, learning with tactile feedback. And I'll go running and I'm like, you know, a mile into running and you feel like everything's on fire and, you know, you're being punished for something. You're like, but what's cool is that the feedback I'm getting from my muscles and everything else, that proprioception that's being activated at that moment in time, is also combined with the fact that I'm learning, I'm listening to something. So I only listen to, or read, but I only listen to books that I can learn from. I don't listen to storybooks and all this kind of rubbish. I only listen to books I can learn from. And how I do that is I go running and I listen to books. And then I'm like, done it, completed it, awesome. And this is a fun fact, because I have ADHD, my brain was just like constantly all the time, right? 100%. I'm even medicated, guys, by the way, but I'm still... And I have to put everything, every video I watch, every book I listen to, every podcast I listen to, I have to put it on 2 times the speed to keep up with my brain. So I'm like, my girlfriend comes in and I'm like, just listen to this podcast, honey. She's like, what? And it's like, blah, 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 blah. She like looks at me and say like, how are you even digesting this information? But I love it. But if I sat down and just listened to that, right, it wouldn't really work, but I have to do something tactile with it, so I have to stand up. I want to hit my chest when I'm doing it, right? Which is similar to why you'll see some autistic individuals will have tics and they'll hit their bodies, right? I used to have mega tics. Actually, medications help, but that's a tactile feedback to make sure that you know that you're getting that information back in. Really interesting. A lot of it is forgotten about. So yeah, autistic individuals don't just have obsessive interest because they're bored and they want to collect stuff and make their house untidy. They're creating a tactile feedback information resource that they can learn from. And that, guys, is those 3 topics I was talking about. I'm done. Thank you for listening. There you go.